Hey, Steve Champagne here. In this training, I want to go over a calculator I put together for you called Dialing for Dollars, okay? Hopefully by now you understand that the phone and telemarketing is probably the best way to get maximum reach during your initial prospecting for new clients for your business. But we really need to know what is the impact when it comes to your bottom line by using telemarketing versus direct mail or any other method of marketing. Now, if you went through my video on my homepage, I'm a big believer in developing a marketing funnel, working to build a relationship with the prospect. Over time, you will close more business, okay? You just need to prove that you're worthy of that person's business. So, what I want to do is kind of walk you through this calculator. You'll be able to download it just by clicking on the button below, all right? And it is a Google spreadsheet, so you're just going to have to make a copy, and I'll walk you through how to do that towards the end of this video, okay? So we basically have our scenarios over here, and then since I'm a big proponent of hiring people to do that initial call, to do that verification call, you also want to get a sense of what your telemarketing costs are going to be to do that, okay? So scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3, all right, we're going to be looking at marketing calls made per hour. So what's a marketing call? A marketing call is when you're making that cold call, you're verifying information, you're trying to set a presentation appointment, but 9 times out of 10 or almost 10 times out of 10, you're not going to have the opportunity to do that. So you minimally have to get some kind of information like an email address that you can start building a relationship with. A combination of several points of valuable information via email towards your products and services and phone calls over time is going to show to your prospect that you are the person that they need to be doing business with, okay? So we want to make sure we know how many marketing calls we do in an hour, the percentage of verification of leads, okay? So you've been able to verify the leads, grab an email address, and now you have that automated system that you'll be able to start putting good quality content in front of your prospect, all right? So then you also want to know the number of verified leads that you're going to be generating during that calling hour, the number of hours of calling per week. Now, if you're a lone wolf, and that's kind of what this scenario is, okay, you're probably going to be doing, a minimum of 10 hours a week. If you can, you should be trying to do, 20 hours a week. Now, you'll see that by doing that type of telemarketing, you really exponentially can grow your business. The number of verified leads you're going to get a month, the number of verified leads you're going to get a year. Now, this is the number of leads that are actually sitting in an email database that you can be touching, a couple times a week. Now, as long as those touches are with valuable information, then it's going to be help you build that relationship, okay? Days in a marketing cycle. Let's face it, people don't do business immediately with us, all right? So we kind of have to have a marketing cycle or initial marketing cycle. Like, how many days is it going to take of me contacting this person through multiple touch strategies as far as phone, email, maybe a couple postcards? What is it going to take to convert that person into that? I think a good marketing cycle is about 75 days, okay? And it really depends upon what your offers are. That could be more, it could be less. I know I have some businesses that my marketing cycle is 15 days. I mean, where I'm going to run you through my total campaign within 15 days because of the price point. And, if you are not in that, if you're not willing to raise your hand at that point in time, then you're probably never going to raise your hand. But a marketing cycle is, 75 days, which is good for the type of, if you're doing consulting business. So how many marketing cycles are there in a year? There's 5 if you base it on that number, all right? Now, before I continue, one thing I should be saying to you is that these fields in yellow are the fields that you actually want to be working with and making adjustments, because it'll calculate all the other numbers for you in white, okay? So I just want to make sure you know that. Now, percent to client, being real conservative here. Over time, that could be a little bit more. It could be as much as 2 or 3%, depending upon how much content marketing you're doing with your prospect, how much education you're doing. Over time, people will see that you're here to stay, especially if you're putting good, valuable information in front of them on a continual basis. That number can be higher, but for today's walkthrough of this calculator, I just put it at 1%. So the number of new clients you're going to bring in every marketing cycle is about 1.5, which is not really a real number, but let's say 1.5. Now, this is the area that we all kind of struggle with, and this is actually an area I kind of struggle with too in my consulting practices. What is the services that I'm going to provide that I can generate reoccurring revenue? Okay, there's tons of things we can do for one-off, all right? But the reality is, when you're building a business, you have to find programs that are going to help you generate recurring revenue. If you're a consultant, then maybe it's a consulting fee or a marketing management fee. I know in my local practice, I position myself as a marketing manager, and so I try to get a minimum of $1,000 a month when I work with my clients. All right, so let's look at the total average revenue here. Basically, it's this number times this number, okay, for the marketing cycle. So if we look at this over a period of 1 year revenue, what we're looking at now is about $7,600 of reoccurring monthly revenue after the first year. Now, if we take it and annualize that, you basically have almost $100,000 of income coming in. Now, if you're a lone wolf and you don't have a lot of overhead, that's good, that's fine. But the reality is, your business is still at a place where it could be adversely affected by the number of clients. 8 clients is really not a lot of clients. I know I've been personally in situations like this where I had just a handful of clients, and if you lose one, it really adversely affects your business. So you really want to put some insulation into your business by getting more clients, okay? But with more clients comes more overhead. So let's look at the gross margin now, okay? Now, gross margin is what you're going to make from your revenue, all right? So in this scenario, I'm using digital display advertisement, okay, where there's typically a 50% margin. So if I charge a client $1,000 a month, I'm probably looking to make $500, all right? So revenue after fulfillment is roughly $45,000 in revenue. Now, we need to take some of that out and put it back into our own marketing, our own overhead. 10%. Reality is 10% is not a lot with a small revenue, okay? You probably should be looking to put 20% to 30% of that number back into your business. So as you can see in scenario number 1, it's really hard to get any real momentum. I mean, you're making some money, but you're just getting a little bit of momentum, okay? So, we want to back out some marketing and overhead budget. So you have net income after your marketing and overhead expenses of roughly about $41,000 in scenario 1. All right. Okay, your annualized reach, that means like the total numbers of phone reaches that you did is roughly about 6,400. Okay. Now here's the number I want you to, this is the reason why I call this the dialing for dollar calculator, because you want to know what your dollar, for every time you decide to pick up the phone or you have someone pick up the phone for you, what is the value of that, okay? When it comes to email, we want to know what's called our earnings per click, or something like that. It's you want to know this value. So this is how it will calculate your value for you. Now, this number is really directly tied to this number, okay? So as this number goes up, this number actually will go up too. So how do you generate more revenue? Well, you need to do more volume, all right? Now, in scenario 1, what we're looking at is you just having a calling list and picking up the phone and making a phone call, all right? Not having a system, not having a piece of software to help you do more volume. The trick here is more volume. When you can't get this number up, what you need to do is get more volume going through your business. And the way you do that is to leverage your business with technology first and then labor. All right. So in scenario number 2, what we're going to look at is you using technology, i.e. myVirtualCaller, all right, to boost your prospecting to 3 times what you would normally be doing, or 2.5 times you normally would be doing with no software whatsoever. Okay. So when we do that, all of a sudden the numbers kind of change. Okay, they change dramatically. I mean, you're almost going to make, keeping all things the same, you are going to make close to 2.5 times more revenue when it's all said and done. All right. Now, instead of, I'm just going to take some key points here because I want to keep this video not too long. But key points are, you went from 2,000 verified leads. Now you have a list of 5,000 email addresses that you're constantly communicating, or hopefully you're constantly communicating to build your relationship. Over time you will get more business out of that list. Again, we're going to keep the cycles the same. That's the same. Everything's the same. Now, key number. Now we go from 8 to 20 clients. Okay. 8 to 20 clients. Now you're getting a little bit more insulation in your business, all right? So if you lose 1 or 2 clients, I mean, you're not in a really bad place. Now let's look at your revenue, okay? After your gross margin, you went from 45,000 now to 123,000. Again, we're going to take 10% right off the top for marketing and overhead. Now you got more money to do some other things. Maybe you're do some more direct mail. Direct mail is very costly. Maybe you take some of your best prospects and do some lumpy mail or things like that. Now, this is where it really makes sense to do this type of work, is when you have a stronger relationship. They actually know who you are, okay? That more expensive marketing has more effect on the prospect, all right? So after it's all said and done, you've generated more revenue. Okay, and now 2.5 times more revenue. All right, scenario number 3 now is taking it to a level, and you're now putting a telemarketer, a part-time telemarketer, into the mix. Okay, you've hired somebody. Now, I personally do this. This is when you hire somebody to make that verification call. Okay, these people don't necessarily have to be the ones to try to close them, and it really depends upon your business model. I know my model is, try to set a presentation appointment, but 9 times out of 10 that's not going to happen, as I said earlier. But you want to get that email address so you can start building that relationship and start putting real valuable content in front of them to help them grow your business. Now, once people start seeing that you're trying to help them grow their business, your business will grow. So this is in scenario 3. We're using a telemarketer that's going to work 20 hours a week for you. Now, I do not have my telemarketer or a telemarketer work more than 20 hours. They work 5 days a week, okay, working 4 hours at a time. And I actually work with telemarketers in the Philippines to make this type of call, this verification call, email call kind of thing, getting information. And let me get some information in your hand. If I could just get your email address, that's the type of call that I have them do, okay? Now, everybody's business is different, but I like, if you watch my video on my homepage, I like developing a funnel, initial prospecting funnel to get people into, and then drop them on to a passive funnel to, build that relationship. So you just, it's a longer game. So with that said, now if we keep all the numbers the same, let's look at some key metrics, okay? Some key metrics is now your analyzed revenue, again, has jumped to almost $500,000. You're a serious business, okay? Again, it really depends upon what this offer is. But $500,000 is nothing to sneeze at as a business now. When you're operating, you're moving towards, being a 7-figure business, and you can do this. Okay, number of clients that you have now is 41 clients. 41 clients gives you a ton of insulation in your business. You can lose a couple clients, and as long as you have a systematic way to get people back in there, you will continue to make that type of money month in and month out. Let's back out, your gross margin. So now you have revenue after fulfillment of almost $250,000. Let's take 10% off of that. All right. What we're looking at now is having a budget, an overhead budget of $25,000. There's some other more expensive things you can really do with that type of budget, leaving you a net income, all right, of $220,000. That's a nice year's income, a nice salary, and this is not really a very big business, all right. It just, you gotta have volume, okay, when you're not charging more than $1,000 a month per client. And in the local consulting space or local marketing space, that's typically what you're going to be on your top end for the most part. All right, most small businesses cannot really spend no more than that. Now, one of the things I'm kind of moving my business into with the local business space is actually business consulting. All right, I'm actually sitting down and doing these type of things with businesses. I'm mind mapping their businesses, and it allows me to actually charge more money, being that business consultant. And then what I'll do is I'll come in and become the marketing consultant. So that's kind of what I'm doing with my business, because I think there's a lot of value there when you start educating businesses on how to grow their business. Okay, just not show them the latest gimmick on marketing. I just wanted to walk you through this spreadsheet so you can see the power of being the lone wolf, in scenario 1, to having technology working, helping use technology like myVirtualCaller in scenario 2, and in scenario 3, that's getting a part-time telemarketer, making those verification calls using myVirtualCaller, and doing it from the Philippines or something like that. And that's what we do. So I'm going to wrap this video up. We're getting on roughly about 17 minutes here. I do want to talk to you a little bit about this, and that is the telemarketer cost calculator. So I put this in here so you could get a sense of what would be your telemarketing costs associated with scenario 3. Okay. And again, you have to make some manual manipulations. So for case in point, let's say you really are you're moving now and you want to put on 4 people. You want to put on 4 people, so that'd be 80 hours a week in telemarketing, right? Well, you need to come up to here and go, we're doing 4 people now. We get 80 hours a week of telemarketing. I get four Filipinos working for me. Now, what's my telemarketing cost for the year, right? Well, my telemarketing cost now is $23,000, of which that's going to come right off that number right there, still leaving you plenty of money, all right, to put back into your business from a marketing and overhead point of view. Maybe you have an assistant at this point. In this scenario, you're probably getting into a place where you may have a small office. You probably have a staff of 1 or 2 working for you, stateside. Maybe an assistant, stateside working for you. Maybe working with a virtual assistant in the Philippines. At this type of level, you are going to need that. All right. As you can see, once you're able to reinvest back into your business, you really can grow your business. This puts you at being a $2 million a year business under this scenario. Okay. If you want to get your hands on this calculator, it's pretty easy. Just below this video, you're going to find a button that will take you out to this spreadsheet, okay? You're not going to be able to work with the spreadsheet. You're going to have to download it or make a copy, it's called, with Google. And you're going to have a Google account, of course. So to do that, once you get over to here, you want to go over to File, okay? And you just want to hit Make a Copy. So this wraps up this video on how to use the Dialing for Dollars calculator. All right, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.